This is something most realtors do not want you to know. But in this particular video, I am absolutely going to be sharing them with you. And this is because of a story I came across not so long ago about an investor who bought a property and failed to do these 5 things I am going to mention to you. And at the end of the day, this person discovered that that land was not genuine, it was a scam, and as at that time, the person's hard-earned money had already gone. And at the end of the day, the person was filled with regret, and there was nothing that could do to redeem that particular transaction. But that doesn't have to be you. My name is James Achems, your number one land banker right here in the very city of Abuja, bringing to you the latest of real estate investment. If you are just coming across this particular video for the very first time, ensure you go and like, ensure you subscribe, and if possible, drop a comment so that for every post we make, you can easily come across them and you can watch, learn, and share with as many persons as possible. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 core questions to ask in order to avoid real estate scams in this particular video. Number one question to ask is, where is the title of this particular land or property coming from? In other words, this question is asked in order to find out or to discover the root of title of that particular land. And what we mean by the root of title is the origin, the originator, or the lineage, the tree of or the flow of the title of that particular land. For instance, that particular property could have been transferred from one person to another. And if care is not taken, there are certain titles you could hold or see, and you would notice that the particular property started from just one person. And at the end of the day, if you are not careful to trace it back to see where it originated from, you could be buying into a particular piece of property that where another person eventually challenges what the title you are carrying, at the end of the day, you might end up losing that particular property. This is why you must be careful to find out the root of that particular title so you can trace where it started from and how come a person came in possession, because the root of title teaches you that the land moves from this person to this person, from Mr. A to Mr. C, Mr. C to Mr. D, Mr. D to Mr. E, and so on and so forth. The second question you must ask is, who is selling this particular land or property? This is a question of identity. Be careful to know that this particular person that is selling this particular property is genuine. In other words, obtain or get the person's identity card so that you can be at least able to verify that this person is a citizen of so and so country or where you are resident. It will safeguard you. It will help you to be able to trace the person in case of any eventuality, because there are so many people out there posing as realtors, whereas they are not genuine. And at the end of the day, you can't trace them. There is nothing to say, okay, this particular person lives here. There is nothing to say, with this ID card, I can use to verify or trace this person to so and so place. So make sure you verify or authenticate the identity of the seller of that particular property. The third question to ask is, does the person has the capacity to own that particular property? Now, this is a question of ownership capacity. It is possible that a person does not have the capacity to own a particular piece of land. Yet, the person could be posing as the particular owner of that particular property and might even want to sell it. And if care is not taken, you buy into that particular property, at the end of the day, you have undone yourself. And the number 4 question you must be very careful to ask is, does the person has the capacity to sell that particular property? Now, this is very, very interesting, because there are certain cases or instances that a person may own a particular land, but the person do not have that capacity to sell. A very good example are what we call community land, or we call communal or family land, that are designated as inalienable. In other words, those lands have been termed that they can never be sold or not be sold under any circumstances. Only with certain conditions can those land be sold. If you are not careful, a member of that family can come with the original or right C of O or R of O of that particular property and may want to sell to you. At the end of the day, if you buy that property can be challenged, or when challenged in the court, it can be revoked. And at the end of the day, you've ultimately lost out, you have lost your money, and the property is nowhere to be found. Another very good example is a child who is a minor. As long as that child is a minor, don't forget, if that property was willed to him by his deceased parent or his parent, provided he is a minor, he has the property, he owns the property, but the capacity to sell that property will not be there at that particular point in time. So you see, even though he is the owner or rightful owner of that particular property, he doesn't have the capacity to sell that particular property. And the last question you need to ask is, does this person has the capacity to sell a property? For instance, very good example, I can own a property, but I am staying abroad. But whereas my younger brother was the one who bought the property in Nigeria, however, in my name, even though he bought the property, he is with the original document, but the property does not belong to him, and he doesn't have the right to sell that property. Now, there may be cases, or there have been cases in the time past, where some persons, even though they were with the original certificate, they went and sold the property, and people ignorantly bought the property. And at the end of the day, the rightful owner came and challenged that particular claim. And that was how it was eventually overturned. So you must be very, very careful. Because the person owns the original certificate of that particular land does not mean the person is the rightful owner and that the person has the capacity to sell. However, I may own a property, but if I'm not in Nigeria, but my younger brother is in Nigeria, and I want him to sell that particular property to me, there is what we call a power of attorney. It's an authority granted or transferred from one person to another, which empowers that particular individual to be able to make sale of that particular property on my behalf. I hope this has been very, very beneficial to you. And if you want to keep learning more and you have not subscribed to this very channel, ensure you do that right away. I remain James Achems. For any property transaction or real estate or financial advice, make sure you reach out to the number shown right on your screen, and I will be there to guide you and help you make your investment secure, sustainable, and help you build a legacy. See you on the very next one. Bye-bye.